If you watched my first video on completing the square, part one, we did some very simple equations or simple expressions. All of them had a leading coefficient of 1. And that makes it much easier to complete the square, but a lot of times when you complete the square, you're going to have a leading coefficient other than 1. And so you need to know how to work with that, because you do need to get it to 1 before you can complete the square and start manipulating your equation. So in this case, I chose an easy equation. This one's actually easily factorable, but we're going to use it as an illustration for how you would complete the square with the leading coefficient. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get rid of our leading coefficient by dividing every term by 3. So in this case now we can rewrite this as x squared plus 2x minus 3. 0 divided by 3 is still 0. So we're okay there, and we could factor it from here also. But let's go ahead and do this as if we were finding a solution simply by completing the square. So we're going to rewrite this equation now as x squared plus 2x. We're going to leave space for our third term, and we're going to add a 3 to both sides. So that's going to get rid of our 3 here, and we're going to add it over here. Now we can complete the square by dividing by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. We're going to square it, which is still 1. But because we're adding it to this side of the equation to keep everything equal, we also needed to add it to this side of the equation just to make sure that everything stays equal. We can rewrite this now as x plus 1 quantity squared is equal to 3 plus 1 is 4. We can then take the square root of both sides, and that gives us x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus, the square root of 4 is 2. So if we subtract a 1 from both sides, we then get x is equal to negative 1 plus 2 is going to be negative 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is going to be negative 3, which that's what we would have come up with had we factored from the beginning. Now, on this side of the board is not an easily factorable trinomial, but we're going to do the same thing with it. We've got a leading coefficient, so we're going to divide every term in the equation by 2. Now that gives us x squared here plus 2x plus 11 halves is equal to 0. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to subtract our 11 halves to both sides. That gives us x squared plus 2x. We're going to leave space for that third term is equal to a negative 11 halves. Now we're going to complete the square by dividing by 2, which is 1, squaring it, which is 1. If we're going to add 1 here, we need to also add 1 over here. So that gives us x squared plus 1 quantity squared is equal to, now if we consider that this is 2 halves, then that's going to give us a negative 9 halves. Now, if we take the square root of both sides, that gives us then x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9 halves. If we then subtract a 1 from both sides, we get x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 9 halves. And you can simplify that down a little bit, rationalize the denominator. But that's exactly what the quadratic formula is going to do for you automatically. But you can go through those steps on any trinomial and come up with a solution in an equation just by simply knowing how to complete the square.